fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's going with the outside of both of them. Maloney!
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up to
Oh my God!
Oh.
Big crash. Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys I want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go.
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my God!
God, what?
Welcome one and welcome all to SimSpeed TV this Saturday night. You know what it means. It's VRS GT night. We're racing the official VRS Sprint Series here on the iRacing platform. We're in week 4 of the 12-week season. And we come to Norfolk in the UK, where we're racing for 40 minutes at the Snetterton circuit, which is a very historic venue, which you can say about the vast majority of racetracks in the UK, to be honest, but Snetterton certainly provides excellent racing, especially with its reconfiguration in 2011. I'm Reese Gardner. Joining me in the commentary box, as per usual, Bradley Wingard. And Brad, we saw a pretty good race at Brands Hatch last week. We stay in the UK for this week, and we come to Snetterton, which is pretty much the opposite of Brands Hatch. There's no elevation change for most of this track, but it's got long straights that provide massive drafting opportunities.
Hey Reese, yeah, last week I made the mistake of saying this was another, small touring car track, but it's actually not. British GT races here. We've got the VRS GT Sprint tonight, so I'm very much looking forward to it tonight.
As am I. We go on into Norfolk in the east of England to the old airfield. RAF Snetterton became Snetterton Circuit in the 1960s, and this is the layout that dates from 2011, the layout that is on the iRacing service. Used to be a bit shorter. That infield section you see from turns 3 to turn 7 did not exist before 2011, and Murray's, the final corner there, used to be a chicane, but simplified and complicated in other ways with the 2011 reconfiguration. Makes the circuit a lot longer and upgraded to FIA Grade 2 standard. I love this track, and particularly at Turn 2, Montreal, Turn 9 at Nelson, and Turn 4 at Agostini are the big overtaking opportunities. I'm really interested to see how the drivers are going to tackle it, especially with the start through that double apex Turn 1. At the moment, and riding on board with seems to be one of the Porsches, Hayden Burns, making his way around the circuit. It's been a while since we've seen Hayden Burns in a race here on SimSpeed TV. Just made his way through the bomb hole corner, and Bradley, this second last turn here, Coram just keeps going and going and going, but you've got to get on the brakes and keep turning for that final corner. It's very easy for drivers to mess up, even in these relatively easy to drive GT3 cars.
Yeah, especially in the Porsche. For anyone that's driven it knows how easily the rear can get unsettled under the brakes. So if you're in a Porsche night, good luck. That second last corner, like you said, just goes on forever, and the fine line that these guys will be running tonight will be tripping people up for sure.
Yeah, absolutely will. Sebastian Tixier is also racing in this session. You might know him from our broadcast to the Virtual Racing School V8 Scops here on SimSpeed. Sebastian Tixier doing a lap good enough for 8th position so far in his Porsche, but the fastest time in qualifying at the moment is Hayden Burns, 1 minute 45.731, and Hayden is the number 1 car in this session, which denotes that he has the most iRating out of all the drivers. So you'd think that Burns is the favorite to win, but we've seen how very interesting the battling is in these GT3 cars. Oskari Karkinen, we haven't seen him since Hockenheim 2 weeks ago, where he came a cropper of a few incidents. He'll be hoping for a better run this week.
Yeah, we have quite a few drivers missing tonight compared to last week, and a lot of people who weren't there last week are returning, which is good to see. Snetterton is, I think, the Vegemite of racetracks in the UK. You either love it or you hate it. But a lot of these drivers clearly like it, so glad to see them here, and hopefully Karkinen can get a slightly better result than 2 weeks ago.
Indeed, and I do like Vegemite, so Snetterton is one of my favourite tracks in the UK. It's got a very nice layout. Let's see how Karkinen does on this lap. 46.7 is his fastest so far. It's a 46.6 for the next lap for him, and that puts him up to P4, and that's his laps done. Every driver gets 2 laps in this 8-minute qualifying session. Jimmy Van Eyck in another Lamborghini running an Alpine livery, which looks lovely on this car, I have to say.
Yeah, I didn't know that Alpine ran Lamborghinis, but now I want to see it in real life. That was amazing.
Yeah, for sure. Darren Wiley setting a 1 minute 47.8, and that's down towards the lower end of the field, and I don't know if that lap counted because he's still showing up as a 48.1 as his fastest time. No, he's just moved up there. So, oh no, he's just moved down because we've had another change of position a bit further up. Rico Whirl going to P17 at the moment and making his way through the goodness me, which corner is this? That's coming into Coram, the second last corner. It's very convenient that Snetterton actually has boards showing the names of the corners. Makes it a bit easier for us broadcasters. Matthias Lauren de Jong, who we know is a pretty good GT driver. He's made his way into the pits. He's done with that qualifying session. So now we can turn our attention back to Jimmy Van Eyck. He's currently in 12th position. A 47.2 is the lap that he currently sits on. And if he only gains 2 tenths, he'll move himself up into the top 10.
Yeah, pretty close field again today. We've had that the last couple of weeks, which is really good. Not much of a gap between anyone. It's 0.1, 0.1, 0.0. So a lot to gain for such a little gain, really. It's great.
Yeah, it is. Luciano Assis, the last driver to set a time and move himself up to P7. So here's the starting grid then for the 40-minute race at Snetterton. It's Burns and Matievski on the front row, with Aurelien Vercher sharing row 2 with Oliver Clark. Oskari Karkinen and Michael Finkboner round out the top 6, and then we go to Luciano Assis and Paul Mansell, the Australian, starting from 8th place, with Sebastian Tixier and Thomas Hinz rounding out the top 10. Top 12 rounded out by Daniel Morphy and Michael Scharler.
Jimmy Vaniak that we just saw in 13th, sorry. De Jong 14th, Joris van der Westen 15th, Michael Gabrielli back in 16th, Rico Well 17th, Chris Lewis in 18th, Daniel Sedgley 19th, and Daniel Blumer rounding out the top 20.
And then you got Michael Reutman and Darren Willey there on the 11th row, and the field rounded out. 24 cars here. Victor Alexandru and Fernando Ferreira not setting a time in qualifying. Let's see how he goes there in his machine. Alexandru driving the Mercedes. Now, in terms of the cars that we've got here, it still seems that the Lamborghini is one of the favorites up the front of the field, but of course Hayden Burns driving the Porsche, managing to put it on pole position, and we're seeing a little bit more brand representation towards the mid to rear of the field. Morphy's driving a BMW. We've got Chris Lowers in a BMW as well. Flaumer and Alexandru driving the Mercedes AMG GT3, and Daniel Sedgley in the Ferrari 488. So we've still got a reasonably good mix of cars here, which should certainly provide for some good racing.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a similar mix to last week. I think the Lamborghini, like you said, is still the strong car. I think the Porsche might have a slight pace advantage, but the Lamborghini is just a bit more stable through some of the longer corners. It's running on less of a knife edge, so I think that's why a lot of drivers have been racing it this week and again tonight.
Yeah, I'd agree with that assessment as well. It's a pretty good package, is the Lamborghini. Interesting how it was just added to the iRacing service without much fanfare a couple of builds ago. People didn't even realize it was coming. And now it's become the must-have GT3 car, along with the new Porsche 911 GT3R, which is one of the newest cars. It was added in the last build, along with the Formula V and physics changes to the Mazda MX-5 and the Spec Racer Ford, but the pace car is going to bring its way in here. The start on the run up to the final corners here at Snetterton. So Hayden Burns is going to lead them away for the first of our many laps that we're going to have tonight. And he goes early, gets a good run on the rest of the field as the green flag flies. Matievski is going to have to look over his shoulder there because he's got Vercher trying to go up his inside into turn 1, but Vercher backs out, and the field trying their best to make their way through the first turn at Riches. Thomas Hinz going round the outside of Daniel Morphy to grab looks like 10th position there as they come into the turn 2 hairpin for the first time. It's a very tight turn with an anti-cut curb on the inside. Got to be careful with how you go through there. But it looks like a pretty orderly start so far as they make their way into the infield section. Burns currently leading by about half a second over Matievski. And then you've got a 4-car train of Lamborghinis through to the next Porsche, which is Michael Finkboner. Looks like we've got a bit of a spin in the midfield towards the back. Lauren de Jong getting spun around, it seems, at the hairpin by Michael Reutman. So that's going to be a bit of a problem there for Matthias Lauren de Jong. Get a virtual racing skill replay, see how it happened, and that is what happened there. Looks like he just tried to stick it up the inside where couldn't really get it done. He wasn't far up enough alongside. De Jong was having to contend with the Ferrari in front, and the number 14 there just getting itself into the side of De
Oh, he's
Jong.
gone around again, this time at the bomb hole. That first incident was not brilliant. Like, that first tap wasn't too bad, but it was what came after that was the worst part. And the second spin, he's gone back to the pits already.
That's a big shame for Matthias Lauren de Jong. His night might be over there. But we look at Van Eyck and Verl right here. Verl in the sole Audi in the field, representing the four rings as the first lap is now complete. And that's a bit wide there for Jimmy Van Eyck. And that allows Verl to get alongside out of the corner. But Van Eyck will have the inside for the sweeping left-hander at turn 3. And this is a difficult turn. You have to late apex it. And it's very easy to run off into the grass, as you see drivers doing there. Verl might try up the inside here. No, just doesn't have the space or the real estate to really get the move done there. Into the left-hand kink of Hamilton they go. And this is a very challenging corner to get right. Very easy to get the old off-track 1X on at the exit of this particular corner, which you can say for quite a few turns here at Snetterton, Bradley. It's a very old-school circuit. It's just grass by the side.
Yeah, it's very similar to Brands Hatch, where you've got that bit of phony runoff on the outside, but if you go too far, then you get penalised for it. And the grass on iRacing is basically ice, so you don't want to really use either of those. You get penalised with the 1X, or you get penalised by the fence.
Indeed, and you also get penalised by those anti-cut curbs, as Rico Whirl finds out, with Michael Schala as well. Oh, and that's a Lamborghini just up ahead with a couple of issues. Who is that? That's Jimmy Van Eyck, who's had a bit of an issue. Let's see what happened to him there. Yeah, it looks to me like he just got a little bit unstable under brakes coming into that chicane and went straight across the grass. That would have given him the slowdown. Here is Oliver Clark in 4th. He's got Oskari Karkinen right behind him. And this is quite the battle going on in the middle of the top 10. 3-car train, Karkinen and then Finkerburner behind. I'm enjoying this for sure.
Yeah, it's place you'd like to be, you know, top 5. That's pretty comfortable. Yeah, top 5 for Karkinen and Clark's pretty comfortable. Burns and Machowski they've checked out. They're already gone away. But these guys are still right there. And we saw this plenty of times at Brands Hatch, people making little mistakes and top 5s, top 10s were gone. So not a bad place to be early on. Would probably like to be higher, but we've still got 32 minutes of racing left, so plenty of time for anything to happen.
Indeed, very true. Back onto the back straight these guys go, and this is where the slipstream is going to come in for Oskari Karkinen. He's a bit too far back to make any meaningful move, but he'll certainly appreciate the draft. He can lift and coast just a little bit into the next corner, try and save a bit of fuel, which means that the inevitable pit stop that's going to come at some point in this race might be a little bit shorter. And we saw at Brands Hatch how much the strategy was affected by that pit stop. It's very easy for drivers to gain quite a bit by pitting very early or pitting late.
Yeah, and just like Brands Hatch last week, we have a really big pit window. It's between lap 5 and 17 of a 23-lap race. So you might sacrifice a little bit of pace by staying behind someone, but the gains you're going to make for the pit stop are just going to outweigh it 10-0. So we'll see what happens towards that lap 17, but I think we're going to have a lot of late pitters again this week.
See what happens for sure. Riding on board with Finkboner in his Porsche. Beautiful interior of the 911 GT3R. He's hugging the inside of the corner quite nicely there, but he might lose out a little on the exit to the two Lambos in front of him, who took a slightly wider line on the entry. This Twisty Infield section can be very challenging for certain drivers. For most drivers, I'd probably say, particularly through that left-hand kink at Hamilton, and then the run into the braking zone for these right-handers. It's a bit of a double apex, this one. You can't afford to run too wide, otherwise you can get right into the grass there. There's no exit curb to save you in that section, but plenty of exit curb coming onto the straight. Plenty of AstroTurf for you to use without picking up the off-track. But for the moment, seems like the race has settled down into a reasonable rhythm. Up the front, it is still Hayden Burns versus Jakub Maciejewski, and looks like Burns is starting to gain a little bit on Maciejewski as we check out the battle for 14th and 15th. Verl at the moment in a bit of a sandwich here as Michael Schaller pursues.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. Go on, Bradley.
You go, after you.
I was just going to say there's another battle brewing between the two of the Aussies in the field, Paul Mansell and Thomas Hinz, for the last couple of positions in the top 10. Hinzy getting right up to the back of Mansell. But we'll continue to follow this battle as you expand on your point.
I forgot what my point was now. I got distracted by Hinzy's absolutely fantastic looking Lamborghini.
Yeah, that's
It was
simracing
actually
channel
run
Lamborghini. Yeah, well, he actually tried to go around the outside of Paul Mansell at the hairpin. Mansell went for the defensive line there. So this battle's going to keep going for quite some time, I imagine. There's another braking zone here for Hinzy to try and gain something, and moving around in Paul Mansell's mirrors, trying to psych him out. Hinzy has stayed in 10th place. Paul Mansell's actually dropped back a position off the start. Sebastian Tixier was able to have a slightly better first lap than him. But these two battling as they are is potentially going to bring in the BMW of Daniel Morpy from the Benelux region. We'll see if he can stay in touch with those two Lambos.
Yeah, Morpy's the highest running BMW at the moment. He's qualified 11, stayed 11, so not a bad race so far. Keeping pace with everyone around him. Probably hoping that something happens between Mansell and Hinzy. Not that we want that, but I'm sure Daniel wouldn't mind. Really clean race by him so far, so keep an eye on the Hinzy battle though, because I think he's closer than he was last lap.
Yeah, it seems like business as usual between Paul Mansell and Thomas Hinz, using all of the curb on the exit of Murray's, the final corner here at Snetterton. Bit of familiar for us. Murray's is also the final corner at Bathurst. Hinzy with a little bit of draft coming into turn 1, but cannot make up much ground, at least in the entry to the corner. Makes up a lot on the mid-corner though. Mansell doesn't go defensive this time, or he does kind of. He takes a little bit of a shallower line into the corner because he knows that Hinzy is ready to pounce if there's a single mistake. And interesting to note as well, Bradley, the Lamborghini allows you in the setup options to run either regular headlights or endurance headlights. So when we get back to a front view of these cars, you'll notice that Hinzy has the lights blaring on the front bumper.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it makes too much of a difference. I actually haven't driven the Lamborghini at night yet, but I'm sure that Mansell in front is wishing that he was running the sprint options rather than the endurance one on the one behind, because you flash that, you're going to be a bit stunned, I reckon.
Yeah, I think so. High beam, sure. As they come onto the back straight for the 6th time this race. Just under half an hour to go here at Snetterton, and no one has yet to pit. So, still be waiting for the first person to blink. It looks like Mansell's actually gained a little bit on Hinzy this lap. There's been a little bit more to gain through the infield section after turn 2. So I think Hinzy's main boon at the moment is his brakes. Just look how much he closes up in the braking zones. Oh, here we go.
Oh.
Yeah, so strategy play here from Thomas Hinz. He realizes he can't get past Paul Mansell very easily, so he's going to go for the early pit stop and try and run it out to the end. Let's see if he becomes a factor later on.
Have to keep an eye on that one. Pit stops are about 8 or 7.5 seconds. That was a pretty good stop. Lane time is about 26 seconds. Michael Schaller is also in the pits. But yeah, we'll have to see what that gap is at the end of this lap when all the timing ticks over, and see if the undercut's worth it, because he's got quite a bit of clean air, 3.8 seconds to the car in front, and about 6 seconds for Schaller behind Hinsey. So we'll see how that plays out come lap 18.
Yeah, certainly will. There's Oskari Karkinen still embroiled in his fight here in the middle of Clark and Finkboner. There's only 4/10 back to Finkboner, but have a look at how much Karkinen reels up onto the back of Oliver Clark of the UK and Ireland club and through Bombhole Corner, which is a fantastic corner. Just goes through the dip. It's a, immense corner and very satisfying to get right, as is the braking zone coming into Murray's, and just how much lock they wind on through that right angle corner. It's very important to get the power down as soon as you can, because you've got this long front straight coming up. If someone gets alongside you on the inside coming into turn one, it can be hard to defend, but with the amount of speed you carry through this corner, you can really hang it side by side.
Yeah, turn one is a fantastic corner around here. It's slightly double apex. It's a little bit bumpy, but there is just enough room for you to go side by side, and brings up some awesome action when the racing's close.
Absolutely. That's why we love seeing racing at Snetterton. But looks like Clark and Karkinen keeping each other very busy here at the moment. And the infield section proving to be what separates the men from the boys, as it were. Through Hamilton they go, they keep it within track limits, which is good, but it's very much a rhythm section here in the middle of the track. You need to get all of your markers right, otherwise you end up losing a lot of time, sometimes to the tune of about a second.
Yeah, I wanted to interrupt, but I didn't want to interrupt you mid-sentence. Daniel Morpy's gone off at just, what was that after? Oogies? Is that turn 6? Between Oogies and Williams, I think?
Yeah, oh, he just caught the grass on the entry to the hairpin and speared right across the circuit. Thank goodness he was in a bit of clear air there, otherwise that might have taken out a couple of cars.
Yeah, going something about this being an old school track with lots of grass runoff. I think he's a bit thankful for that right now, because most other tracks he would have been probably in the fence a lot sooner than he was just then.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the battle for third continues. Aurélien Vercher currently holding on to that third spot in his Lamborghini, with Clark, Karkinen and Finkboner running behind line astern. It seems pretty equidistant, the gaps between these cars now, so Vercher has lost a little bit of time potentially to Oliver Clark, and Clark is dragging Karkinen and Finkboner with him as Jimmy Van Eyck makes his way into the pits. He is joined in there by Matthias Lauren de Jong, who has made his way back out onto the circuit after 776 seconds. There's Thomas Hinz making his way through turn one, just passing the Mercedes there of Victor Alexandru. So Hinzy already making up positions after being one of the first drivers to pit.
Yeah, the gap between he and Mansell is about 20 seconds. So at the rate he's going, this undercut should work out, which is quite exciting. That 4-second gap has done Hinzy a lot. He's about a second and a half quicker than any of the cars that he's around. So not only is he catching them quickly, he's also getting around them quite quickly as well.
And will be all to his benefit later on in the race, as check back in with Clark and Karkinen. Oh no, there's been a problem there. And that's Paul Mansell with the number 11 car. That's Sebastian Tixier. And Tixier was ahead of Mansell after the first lap, but they've come together somewhere. It looks to me like, as we go to the Virtual Racing School replay, it was a mistake from Mansell at the chicane after the back straight. Tixier was minding his own business here, coming into the chicane, but Mansell just overshot the braking zone, got a little bit crossed up through the left-hander, and had no choice but to go into the side of Tixier there. He probably could have afforded to go to the runoff area, but he was probably still, adamant that he could make the corner. Unfortunately, that was just really poorly timed there. And I think there's going to be a bit of an apology on the radio for that one.
Yeah, I think you get into that mindset of, okay, I need to brake here and turn in here. And if you miss your mark or not, once your mind is made, it's kind of made. And unfortunately, Tixier was the victim in that case. And Mansell, I think he did say his apologies over the radio. I'm not 100% sure if I caught that or not, but rare mistake in a very, very fast and bumpy corner. So hopefully neither of them are damaged for that and they can recover, but that would have definitely helped Hinsey out on his charge back up the field.
It absolutely would have. And on the subject of damage, I do see that Tixier has got a little bit of damage to his front right. So might have been from a little earlier, but remains to be seen. Here's Karkinen coming through bomb hole corner, chasing down Oliver Clark still in that hot pink Lamborghini. Certainly can't miss it, that number 8. Let's see if either of them decide to go for the pits this time around. We're almost at half race time, so this is the point where you'd expect a lot of drivers to be coming into the pits, but these guys end up avoiding it for the time being, and as far as I can see, no takers on the pits this time around. The sole Ferrari in the field, the number 13 of Daniel Sedgley. This guy started in 19th place, and he's started to make his way into the top 10. Of course, he still has yet to pit, so he'll be behind Hins and the like when he eventually does. But still, this has been a very good fight up here from Sedgley.
Yeah, his lap times have been quite consistent over the last couple of laps, which will definitely be helping his case, along with the contact between Mansell and Tixier in front of him. I don't know how much Tixier has been hindered by that contact, but Sedgley is slowly catching him and hopefully for his sake, being front the next lap or two. Neither of the 3 cars at the bottom of the top 10 have pitted yet either. So he might be in that for the long game, or he might go for the short game and make the pass into the chicane.
Oh, Sedgley. Oh dear, that's even worse. That's Paul Mansell with another issue there in his Lamborghini. And it looks like that might have been a self-inflicted spin there for Paul Mansell. He has not had a good run here in the middle part of this race. This is on the run up to the hairpin. He just catches the grass on entry, but he makes the corner. But that kicked the car into a slide. And these GT3 cars, they have traction control. Once that TC kicks in and you're in a slide, there's not much you can do to save it.
It looked fine on entry. I mean, maybe a bit too hot, but then trying to carry that speed round was never going to work, unfortunately. And these things happen, especially in the Lamborghini, which is on a knife edge. Maybe not so much as the Porsche, but still a knife edge car.
Yes, indeed. Here's Daniel Flaumer in the Mercedes, and it looks like the driver in front of him pitting there. That was Michael Reutemann, who obviously had that contact with Matthias Lauren de Jong on lap 1. So, continuing on with his race, he hasn't been hindered too much by that. The question is, who blinks first in this battle for third? Because it looks like Aurelien Vercher is starting to be reeled in here by Oliver Clark and Oskari Karkinen. They've dropped Michael Finkboner, these Lamborghinis. So Finkboner, I think, might be thinking of pitting soon, maybe to try and undercut these guys.
Yeah, getting a bit of clean air for, well, I mean, in Formula 1 you think, oh yeah, we'll back off, get the battery and charge again. We don't have that in GT3, obviously, so high wear around here is pretty low, so I don't think it'd be that. But yeah, I reckon undercut at this point. The gap's out to 2.1 seconds now. It was nothing like that a couple of laps ago, so maybe the dirty air isn't too high in the GT3 car, but the following someone wears on you, so maybe he's trying to get that space, go for the pit, and then go on the charge, similar to Hinsey, but obviously at a later stage of the race.
Yes, well, we briefly flicked to Paul Mansell, who'd had yet another issue at the left-hand hairpin. Looked like he did the same thing that Daniel Morphy did some minutes ago. Just caught the grass on entry and it flicked him into a slide across the inside of the corner. So hopefully for Paul, he's able to get a bit more consistency out of that car and bring it home to the finish, because unfortunately for Paul, he's not been able to capitalize on that 8th place start. He's currently running down in 18th position, sorry. So not the best of races there for the Aussie. Meanwhile, on board with Karkinen into that left-hand hairpin, the very spot where Paul Mansell had his off. And it looks like Mansell has decided to go for the pit lane. He's decided, nah, this is not good. I'm going to have to take a bit of time here in the box, just decompress, get some more fuel into the car, and then I will be able to get back out there and see how well I do. And looked like a reasonable stop there for Paul Mansell. 11.2 seconds, not the slowest stop of the night. That currently belongs to Jimmy Van Eyck. 13.2 seconds. Of course, if you discount Matthias Lauren de Jong's nearly 13-minute time in the pits after his incident with Mr. Reutemann. Oh, a little bit of lawn mowing going on there for Oskari Karkinen in his pursuit of Oliver Clark. Might have lost a little bit of time there, but Aurélien Verschère starting to look into his mirrors and see that Clark is really bearing down on him now.
Yeah, Verschère's had a pretty calm race since probably lap 2 when the field started to spread out. Gap's now down to half a second last lap, so getting a bit more intense. The race is going on now. It's 26 minutes in. You know, it's not quite 24 hours, but Snetterton is a pretty demanding track. There's not a lot in the way of braking points, so you have to try and run on muscle memory a lot more, and it starts to show. And I think Verschère is starting to feel a little bit of an impact through that.
Yeah, it's very difficult to keep the consistency up around this track with not only how many corners there are, but how varied your lines can be over the course of a race. As you know, the tires go through their pressure and temperature cycles, as you go through, you know, muscle memory, as you said, Bradley. It's a very difficult task making a car go fast around here, and Verschère popping a wheel into the grass. Starting to feel the pressure now of Oliver Clark as he bears down on him, and Clark now is thinking, oh, this is a potential move on the horizon, and maybe at this point, if Clark can't get by Verschère, it'd probably be a good idea for him to pit.
Yeah, especially with Kaikkonen behind. I reckon one more lap. If he's not passed by probably turn 2 hairpin, I'd probably box this lap. We've got 3 laps until the window closes, so that would probably bring him out around Michael Gabrilli in 12th. Gives him a little bit of space to work with, and hopefully he can bridge that, what was half a second, across the line. So we'll see what happens coming out of Murray's corner at the end of this lap.
Indeed we shall. Daniel Flaumer in the Mercedes, the number 16, is doing very well for himself at the moment, as we see Chris Lowers and Rico Whirl make their way into the pits. Let's see how this battle of the pit stops works out between the Audi and the BMW. So, good stop there for Rico. That was 8.5 seconds, which is pretty average for what we'd expect. Lowers 12.9 seconds, so he's lost quite a bit of time there in the pits. Maybe overfueled the car just a tad.
That front of that BMW was looking a little bit worse for wear, so maybe taking a little bit of damage repair while it was there. Obviously, we don't need tyres for this, especially at a low degradation track like Snetterton. So maybe just trying to get some of that top end back, because we do have 2 very long straights going into turn 1 and into turn 9.
Yeah, we do. You know, a little bit of aero damage goes a long way in hobbling your pace around a place like this, especially with so many fast corners around here as well. So the Lamborghini trio to the final corner. Let's see if any of them blink this time. Looks like none of them going for it again. And Finkburner's not doing anything either. So it looks like these guys are all in it for the long haul, making a late pit stop towards the end of this race. There's only 13 minutes to go, so they're going to have to make a decision soon as Luciano Assis. Whoa, hang on. Here we go. It's starting to become a bit of a battle here for third. Vercher having to go defensive against Oliver Clark, but no dice for the hot pink UK and Ireland racer. See how they go here in the midfield section. It's very important to have rhythm through this part of the circuit, and Vercher has started to slip.
Oliver Clark probably won't want to go for a move on track unless Vercher has a slow run down the back straight. Vercher is very much a cork in the bottle for this, even down to 6th, all running very similar lap times last lap. So I'm wondering if maybe Clark and Karkkonen are just sitting there for the fuel save. 2 laps left for pit this one, and lap 17 obviously it's the last chance they'll get. So maybe running similar lap times but within half a second is gonna, you know, give them an extra 4/10 saved in the pits and come out on top at the start of lap 18.
We shall see. The leaders still have yet to pit as well. It looks like Hayden Burns has avoided the pit lane entry, so has Jakub Maciejewski. And these guys are quite a ways behind, to the tune of about 9 seconds, and there we go. Yeah, and he's followed in by Karkkonen. So both of these guys thinking, okay, we're seeing that Vercher is starting to slow down a bit. We'll want to get ourselves into the pits. See if we can get a nice quick stop. It's a very bumpy pit lane here. Snetterton, oh no! Oh, overshot pit box there for Oliver Clark, and that might give the advantage to Oskari Karkkonen. And Luciano Assis also joins them in the pits, and Karkkonen does indeed make his way out ahead of Mr. Clark. That's a big shame there for Oliver. He was doing so well before that point, but again, it just shows that, you know, even the slightest mistake can define your race.
Especially in a pit lane such as Snetterton is very bumpy, and yes, these cars have ABS, which helps with stopping, but you can't really stop a car if your tyres aren't connected to the road surface. And maybe he just got caught out through a bumpy pit box, but Drew's kicking himself right now after that one.
Yeah, he's a couple of seconds behind Karkkonen now as into the chicane goes Hayden Burns through bomb hole, through the dip, slight banking through that corner, narrow curb on the exit too, so you can't afford to take too much out of it. It is the end of lap 17, so unless he's managed to pull some kind of magic, we'd expect him to come into the pits right now. Let's see what he does. Indeed, he does go in, and he is followed in by Jakub Maciejewski. And we still got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars yet to come in, and they do indeed come in. Vercher, Michael Finkburner staying out, so he's done some wonders with his fuel consumption, it seems.
Yeah, maybe that 2 seconds that he dropped on the Clark Karkkonen battle has given him an extra lap of fuel, so I don't know, it's a very ballsy move if it does give him a 18th lap, but this might be maybe not a race winner, but a podium position winning run.
We'll have to wait and see as the leaders make their way out of the pits. It looked pretty consistent between them. Maciejewski was 0.3 faster on the stop than Hayden Burns was, but they had the same lane time, so not much to be gained there. So Karkkonen now out behind Vercher, and it's going to be up to him to try and get this move done. Let's see then how this goes towards the end. Daniel Sedgley brings his car out of the pits. He's the second last car to make a pit stop on this one. Michael Finkburner, we would expect, comes in at the end of this lap, and it's still been a really good run from Sedgley. He remains in 10th place after all of that, as the number 5 of Joris van der Vesten comes in out of the pits there. And Joris rejoins in 18th place, made his way up to as high as 6th at one point. So, now this is the battle to look out for on the circuit. Can Karkkonen take 3rd place from Aurélien Verschère is the big question of the night. It's been a really good run from Karkkonen. He's kept it mostly mistake-free. And Michael Finkburner, as expected, comes into the lane. Now, will going one lap longer than everyone else prove to be the benefit for the Porsche driver?
On paper, I don't think so. Verschère at the start of last lap was 18 seconds behind Finkburner's lane time and stops about 25, 26 seconds. So I reckon it could still gain him a position or two, but I don't think it's going to be enough for a podium.
Indeed, by go Verschère and Karkkonen as Finkburner goes to the limiter line, and thanks to partially that pit box overshoot by Clark, Finkburner comes out ahead of Oliver Clark. So Michael Finkburner now up into 5th place as a result of that. Very well executed stop as well. It was a 9.6 second stop, 26.7 second lane time, as we have a battle a bit further down. Verl and Schala, Audi versus Porsche for the first couple of positions outside the top 10. Who is going to come off the best in this one? We only have under 7 minutes to go in this race. It could still go either way in many of the battles out here on track. We've got Aurélien Verschère versus Oskari Karkkonen. We've got Finkburner versus Clark. We've got Verl versus Schala right here. And Chris Lowe's, Jimmy Van Eyck and Michael Reutemann are currently involved in a bit of a 3-car train further back in the field from 14th to 16th. So there's still plenty of positions to be defined here. And you see right there, Jimmy Van Eyck trying his best there on Michael Reutemann.
Yeah, that Alpine livery surely stands out, and this battle makes it even better. Coming into the hairpin, probably too far back. Yeah, too far back for a move, but still got that big long straight. He's 0.8, half a second behind, so back straight might be on. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are I'm going to stay glued to this battle until we get a conclusion to it, because, man, this has turned out to be quite the cracking race at the very end here at Snetterton. And, oh dear. Looks like Oliver Clark made a mistake through Murray's. He has dropped quite a bit to Michael Finkburner. Yeah, it was a spin on the run into Murray's. He was coming through Coram, the right-hander, got on the brakes, and I think the bias might have been a little bit too far to the rear, because the rear end kicked out slightly when he went onto the grass, and it created a bit of a tank slapper moment, and he went for a spin. Fortunately, no cars around him, so he was able to get back online and get going again, but now he's under a bit of a threat here from Luciano Assis and Thomas Hinz.
Yeah, everyone says that the Lamborghini is just a replated Audi, and that's so typical of the Audi to do. Is if you have a little bit of steering input with a bit too much brake, the back just goes around. But thankfully he caught it, didn't take anyone out, didn't spin properly, but it's very typical of the Audi and the Lamborghini design to do that, especially in a corner like Coram.
Yes, indeed. Jimmy Van Eyck still trying on Michael Reutemann, but Reutemann got a really good exit around the outside of the turn 2 hairpin. So that battle stays as it is for the moment, and that Alpine livery showing off the spec maps on iRacing very nicely. It's got just the right amount of sheen. It's a pleasure to watch that thing go around the circuit. As we check back in with Oliver Clark, Luciano Assis, and Thomas Hinz. Assis we're focusing on at the moment. And in terms of lap times, it seems to me that Hinz has the advantage here, because he took 3/10 out of Assis on the last lap. He could make himself known in this battle pretty soon.
Yeah, Hinz is one of 4 drivers running in the 46s at the moment, so everyone's in the mid-47s or slower. Very close this lap. I don't think turn 1... Well, collision further back as well, but we'll stay with this one. Hin's right on the tail through turn 1. Turn 2's all in the grass as well. Turn 2's probably out of the question now. I was going to say turn 2's a very good passing opportunity.
We'll go quickly to the virtual racing school replay to see what happened here. Michael Reutman, we're taking a look at here with Mr. Oh no, oh that's no good. Well, Michael Reutman made that contact with Matthias Laurent de Jong earlier in the race, and maybe Laurent de Jong is looking at that and thinking, well, tit for tat, really.
Yeah, thankful that it's a mid-engine car rather than a rear one, so he can at least continue on. He's lost a bit of front downforce, quite a bit of front downforce, but he's just been pushed off again as well, going into the turn 2 hairpin. Not having a good run in this late stage, but he is still pointing in the right direction, so that's what matters. But definitely a bad run in the last, well, 3/4 of a lap, really.
Yeah, it's all gone wrong for Michael Reutman in the last few minutes. And he was having a pretty strong race otherwise too. So it makes you wonder what might have been, really. Meanwhile, Assis versus Hinz. Looks like Oliver Clark has started to get a bit of consistency and speed back, and he's starting to drop these two. Thomas Hinz will be able to see that and go, well, I'm going to have to make my way past Luciano pretty soon. Continue my my run up this field. Assis is currently occupying the position he started in, which is 7th, but Thomas Hinz is on a good run here, started in 10th and going for that 7th at turn 1, but he's not far up enough alongside to make the move. Maybe he might be able to get up the inside at turn 2. No, he cannot.
It's such an inviting corner to just lick the stamp and send it, but the speed you carry through turn 1 is insane, and going into turn 2 you have to be practically glued to the back bumper to make the move work. And Hinzy's been around for, you know, his fair share of races, so he knew better than to send it into turn 2, but it is so inviting to just go up the inside there and wreck both of your races. But great patience by Hinz. Still, what do we got? Well, last lap, second last lap maybe, so probably want to get a move done soon, but I think he'd rather finish in 8th than not finish at all, so we'll see what this last bit of racing brings for us.
Indeed we shall. Second place at the moment, Jakub Maciejewski. He's continued to fall further behind Hayden Burns here. You see Hayden just up ahead there in the Porsche. He's a bit of a speck in the distance now. It's been a pretty flawless drive by Hayden, taking pole position and leading almost every single lap so far as he gets the white flag. And Maciejewski will do the same. Final lap here at Snetterton. And the one thing that Maciejewski will be counting on is a mistake from Burns, but we haven't seen any mistakes from the Australian so far. Here we go then. Thomas Hinz might have a run here on Luciano Assis. Assis goes defensive out of the final corner. Hinzy's going to have to take the long way around through Riches. Oh, he gains a little bit in the mid-corner, gets on the throttle a little bit harder, gets almost squeezed, but Assis was just ahead enough there to make the move clean. Hinzy trying to hang it around the outside of the hairpin, cannot get it done. He's got plenty of opportunities to come though. Let's see what he can do. Moves to the outside again through turn 3. Tries to go for the late apex. Can't pick up the throttle because Luciano Assis is there on the inside. There's nothing that Hinz can do in that respect. Moves around again in the mirrors. Tries to distract Luciano. Make him get pressured into a mistake. Is this going to be the defining moment of the race for Assis and Hinz? We'll have to wait and see. They've still got half a lap to go. Just a few more corners here to get right before you get onto the straight, and Hinzy might be able to have one more move in the draft. He just needs to nail this right-hander onto the back straight. Slightly later turn in for Luciano Assis, but it looks like he manages to maintain that momentum. Hinzy, though, in the draft, they move around. We'll cut away briefly to just check out our leader, Hayden Burns, coming to the line. Hinzy cannot get the move done on Assis there, and Hayden Burns coming home to win Virtual Racing School GT here at Snetterton. Magnificent drive indeed, with Maciejewski taking a fantastic second, and it looks like Aurelien Vercher has been able to hold off the advances of Oskari Karkinen to take third. Some magnificent drives all throughout the field in this race, and Hinze, well, he'll probably be a little frustrated with that, but it was a fair and clean battle between himself and Luciano Assis, and I think Luciano can be very proud of that defensive drive.
Yeah, Hinze is, like I said, he's been around for a while. He attacks very hard when he does attack, and that defense was very, very good. Both drivers showing absolute class through turn 1 and 2, leaving just enough room. It could have easily come together in any other circumstance they probably would have, but both put on a brilliant display, and it's why we love GT racing, is we get more defensive moves and attempts for a move like we did just then.
Indeed, last battle here on track. Oh, bit of a mistake at the final corner there for Joris van der Vesten. Might he get a position here at the line lost from Paul Mansell? Now, the run to the line looks reasonable, and van der Vesten is just going to hold off Mansell, who's had an absolute horror race here at Snetterton. It's been a shame for a few drivers here in the field. Daniel Morpy, Paul Mansell, Michael Reutemann, Matthias Lauren de Jong, certainly, but taking the spoils of victory is Hayden Burns by 4.2 seconds from Jakub Maciejewski, and Aurelien Vercher completing the podium, and a very strong drive there from the Lamborghini driver. Karkinen and Finkboner round out the top 5, with Oliver Clark coming home P6. If it weren't for that pit box error and the half spin a bit later, he probably would have been in contention for the podium positions. Luciano Assis held off Thomas Hinz, with Sebastian Tixier coming home in 9th place, and Daniel Sedgley rounding out the top 10.
In 11th is Michael Schaller, 12th is Rico Well, 15th Michael Gabriel, 14th Chris Lowers, 15th Jimmy Vernick, 16th is Darren Wiley, 17th Daniel Mopey, 18th Joris van der Westen, Paul Mansell, as we said, unfortunately our biggest mover, but negative unfortunately for him, and rounding out the top 20 was Michael Reutemann.
Victor Alexandru came home in 21st, and Daniel Flaumer, the last finisher there, coming home in 22nd, with Fernando Ferreira and Matthias Lauren de Jong coming home some laps down. Ferreira 1 lap down, Matthias Lauren de Jong, of course, out on the first lap thanks to that contact with Michael Reutemann. Well, that concludes the racing at Snetterton. Next Saturday, we're going to bring you Virtual Racing School GT Sprint Series from Imola, another completely different track. It's a classic motorsport venue, is Imola, and Bradley, I can't wait to see how the cars go around there, because Imola is always good for racing in just about any category.
Yeah, Imola always seems to draw in big crowds. Everyone in both real world and sim racing love it. It's my absolute #1 favorite track in the world, period. So I am so excited for next week, because Imola never seems to disappoint, whether it's Formula 1 in real life or Mazda MX-5s in the simulator. Everything is exciting, so I cannot wait.
Neither can I. We certainly hope you cannot wait either, watching out there on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter. Thanks very much for tuning in. A big thanks to our supporters at Virtual Racing School. They do a lot of great stuff for us here at SimSpeed TV, and we're happy to bring this series to you. We hope that you can join us for Imola next week. I'm Reese Gardner. Alongside me was Bradley Wingard and Jay Kennedy producing. Who is going to take the spoils of victory in Italy? Will Hayden Burns return and take it to the Euros, or will we see another surprise winner? Hope you can join us for that.
Fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rhythm, both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taking Anderson! Anderson's up top!
Oh my god!
Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go!
over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?